All right, guys. So this section, we'll come up with better names for all this stuff, Jake. But for this section, we'll talk about, kind of producer mindset. And really one thing that a lot of us and a lot of agents have been focused on and a lot of management focused on is how we, really maximize, both profitability and like productivity. Because, and you and I have, I think, could both attest to this. This is a business where you could feel really busy and feel like you're getting a lot done and get nothing done. And there's other times where you feel like maybe you didn't do that much, but you get paid a lot, right? And so I think it's just, learning where to spend your time, how to spend your time wisely, and like really understanding that there's, this is commission-based sales. And same thing for building a team is commission-based, team building deal that you get paid for performance on, not for effort, right? And so there's no gold star for putting in a good honest day's work. Like you have to bring home results, which is good and bad, right? It kind of sucks when you're new and you're not that good, and then once you get good, it's really cool because you don't have to work as hard and you can have a big return. So what I wanted you to talk about as far as some things that could really help people hone in on productivity, and especially for agents that have been here for let's say like at least 6 months. A big thing that everyone should be doing is working their book of business. I was looking at this, dude, and I was at a couple meetings recently with some integrity partners, and I've talked to a bunch of people, and there's other companies there. I met a guy who his whole company, what they do is they buy books of businesses from agents when they go to retire. It's mostly Medicare, but some final expense blocks of businesses, and they sell them to other agencies who work that book of business. And so it's worth a lot of money, especially if you've been there for a period of time. But I think that a lot of us, myself included, until the end of the time in the field, don't capitalize on that because it seems easier just to go write more business. But people literally will pay for your book of business because they can go back and add policies on, not replace policies, but go add on and go, it's like a free warm lead. So I'd love for you to talk about some of the stuff you've been doing, with annual reviews and how you're, getting multiple sales from your already existing book of business, and maybe even, bring people back on that fell off or whatever you're doing with it. But I'd love for you to touch on that for the next, 5 minutes or so.
Dude, for sure. Honestly, I didn't start working my book of business until January of this year. So like 2 full years of writing business and all that stuff. But going back, there was so much gold that I missed. Because like if you're walking into a couple's house, for instance, and you just put coverage on the breadwinner at that point in time, but they have 3 or 4 kids and they couldn't put something in place on the wife at that time, right? Like just calling people up just to see if their situation changed. Like, have they accumulated any more debt, like from any assets? Have they remortgaged their house recently? Have they changed jobs recently? Has the wife started working? Are you guys both working? Did somebody stop working? Just figure out what changes went on, make sure everything's good with their policy. And then you can repackage and represent a close for the other person or for the new asset, for the new debt, for the new opportunity, whatever. But it's even if you don't close something, like people always appreciate you reaching out. And like you can always ask for referrals from your clients, man. So I mean, it's an endless business cycle that I didn't take advantage of, and I wish I would have earlier.
What does the initial phone call sound like? And then are you trying to do like a 1-call appointment, or, what does the process look like? So you call someone you wrote 2 years ago, like just walk them through kind of what that initial phone, or even 6 months ago. Like I think if it's been at least 6 months, you can call people back, right? And again, you're not, I just want to make this so clear so everyone hears it over and over again. Like you're not ever canceling business that's already in force, because if you have clients that are on the books for 1.5 years or 2 years, they're already past contestability. Like if they die, their beneficiaries are getting a paycheck like the next day. So what we don't want people doing is calling their book and replacing business to get, that's, first of all, it's called churning and it's illegal. You'll lose your insurance license and probably so don't do that. But what you can do is call back, even after 6 months. And like you said, hey, we didn't cover your wife, you wanted to do that. So I guess 2 things, like what does the initial call look like? And then, what do you do now, or what did you do before to keep track of all these scenarios that you needed to go back and follow up on because you knew that in 6 months they needed more coverage, or their daughter or wife or whatever?
Yeah, dude. So a tool that we started leveraging was HoneyBook. And HoneyBook's really cheap. I think it's like $79.99 for unlimited use. And you can upload all of your customer documents for all their policies and all that stuff in there, attach it to their customer portal, and they can actually communicate with you through that portal. It's like, what I really didn't like was using a bunch of different phone systems and then trying to remember which number I gave to the client or which number I called that client on and closed them. Right. If you have it all in one place, it helps a lot, and you can streamline and you can put notes in there. You can book appointments, all that stuff. So that has made it a lot easier and just a lot more streamlined. But with the call, just the follow-up call, just super casual, dude. They're already a client. Like, just call them up and have a conversation. Hey, Zach, this is Jake, that dude that looks like Peyton Manning from the eyebrows up that swung by last December and put a policy in place on you and your wife. How's everything going? Has anything changed? And just kind of take it from there. I will say booking appointments for reviews with current clients, it's pretty sticky compared to like booking appointments with leads. So don't be afraid to do that.
Got it. And what couple directions does it usually go? Like if I'm like, yeah, man, everything's good, do you start digging back in, or, like if I don't give you anything, right? So you're like, hey, how's everything? Has anything changed? Like, no, man, everything's good. Like it was good. Appreciate you coming out. Appreciate you checking in. Not much has changed our way. But thank you for calling. Do you try to dig in and leverage any of their, products we offer, or anything, or where do you take the conversation from there?
Man, I just try and avoid like non-specific language. Just because if I ask, like, if anything changed, you're like, that could mean something completely different to you than it does to me. Right. So instead of saying something like that, I'm just going to say like, Zach, have you accumulated any debt, or have you guys attained any assets in the last 6 months prior to when I came out there last? Are you still working at the same job, or did you get a new one? You're making more money or less? Right. Is your wife still staying at home, or is she working now? Right. Ask for just specific stuff like that, and you're going to be able to uncover something that way.
Perfect. And then, yeah, like you said, if they go like, yeah, I started my own business, then you go, okay, maybe you're an IUL client now. Maybe I should get you some sort of health products too, right? Or if they're like, yeah, we took out a second mortgage on the house. Now we owe 600,000. You're like, okay, I need to add more. So you just ask very specific questions and give them a lot of questions so that one of them will stick. And if not, you ask for referral, right?
Always, dude. Always. Referrals are so freaking awesome, because if you call your client up and it just shows that you care, number one, about your clients and your business, and you're doing a good job, you're keeping track of everything. If you can't find an angle with all the questions you're asking with your client, like, let them know, like, hey, I'm looking for a referral business. If you think I did a good job, do you know anybody that you work with that I could also help? They'll give you people.
Dude, people love giving referrals. And that's what I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, dude, pretty much everything that I do is like from a referral. Like the place I get my haircut is a referral from someone that I met when I first moved here. Our realtor was a referral from one of the contacts I had at Ethos who just bought a house here. Like, the place where I bought my car was a friend of a friend that was a GM of a deal. Like everyone's referrals, and we don't ask for them, but like people like giving out referrals for things that they enjoy, right?
100%.
This something that you take, this gym you go, like everything that we do pretty much is all based on someone told us to do it, right?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
So sweet. Well, so that's part of the business. We've been here 6 months or longer now. Can you go through kind of what you're doing as far as how much telesales versus in-home you're doing, if you're kind of trending one way more than the other? And before you jump into that, I would say to new people, like I've heard some confusion from some agents we work directly with saying like, oh, I want to do both. It's like, I think the best thing you should do as a new agent is pick one and try to get really good at it, and then you can add the other one. But I think if you're trying to learn two things at once, right? That's like you said Peyton Manning. Like if Peyton Manning tried to learn how to throw the football right-handed and left-handed at the same time, like that would have taken a lot longer to figure out, right?
Yeah.
So I think you just pick one and do it. But what is because you obviously started in-home, what does your evolution look like now, and how much are you doing of one versus the other?
I'd say that in terms of premium and like app count, in-home is still the most consistent thing for me. That's why I still do it at least one full day a week. I like to have minimally 10 in-home appointments per week and just knock it out in a day. Like Sunday for me, in a couple of days is going to be my in-home day. Right. But what that does for me is it just gives me consistent cash flow. And I feel like as a new agent, that's what you want to attain and master, is just have consistent cash flow all the time. Right. So if something's working, like don't turn the faucet down, like crank it up a little bit, like see how good you can get at in-home or telesales, whatever road you're going down. And almost to the point where you can like automate it and just like guess, like, okay, if I have 10 appointments this week, my closing ratio is like X typically. So I know I'm going to take home X amount of money based off my average app count. Like that's what you want to get to, and just make it super predictable before you add in like another business dynamic, like trying to completely run a hybrid schedule or switch over and learn one or the other.
Yeah, no doubt. Now for, maybe for for in-home or for telesales, are there any things that you've done? Because we're kind of talking about profitability. Any things that you've done, and I know you've had a big focus on, increasing retention over the last couple of years, and it's gone way up. Hopefully, you don't mind me sharing that because I already shared it, but it's
It's all
gone.
good, dude.
Yeah. What are a couple of tips you have for people for how to make sure that their business? Because it's really cool to sell insurance, but it's not as cool if it falls off. And we've all had times in our lives where persistency is not what we wanted. So what are a couple of things you've done to increase persistency and retention for the clients that you have, make sure they're not canceling after a week or a month or, 3 months?
Yeah, dude, for sure. And like, I don't mind sharing that, by the way, man, because I mean, somebody's going to be able to learn from it and not, not be the new chargeback king. Like, I'm fine retaining that title. No one else needs to do that. But
Yeah.
one thing I implemented, man, that helped me out a ton is I just kind of make it seem like I'm an employee, even if they know I'm self-employed, and an employee that has like rules, financial rules. So like Zach, I'll say like, hey man, we have certain rules in place because like our number one priority is making sure that if you have a policy in place that it pays out to your beneficiary when it's needed. Right. So we don't want to reallocate more than 5%, 7%, or 9% on the top end of your monthly income. Right. Before we even look into like what the product is, I'm going to let them know what those parameters are, just so I can kind of separate myself as being like a guy who's going to try and just jam a policy down somebody's throat just because I can, and that I have to abide by some rules as well. And right, so we can like implement those and write those out before we even look at the premium. And like I do that specifically on telesales, and that's helped me out a ton because it just gives people a price gauge, and it helps me not waste a lot of my time in having to just like find a new angle or find a reason to sell something. Like I want them to know that this service is going to cost them something. Here's the rules and the standards that we have to stay close to. So let's see what face value can fit your 5 or 7 or 9% and what we can do with it.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that because you're kind of establishing a budget ahead of time. And dude, we were scared to do that for a long time. Like even talk about budget. We were just like, let's throw some numbers out there and see what happens. But the more transparent you are with people, they're like, oh yeah, I could. And that's how you do everything else, right? You don't go like, hey, let's go pick a house we really like. It's like, no, that'd be really dumb because the one you like might be $37 million, right? You're like, okay, this is the budget. And then the bank goes, okay, you can be within this range, like pick one you like. And you're doing the same thing. You're like, okay, this is what you can afford. Like pick one that you like that's within the budget you can afford. It makes way more sense than the way we just kind of used to take like a shotgun approach to it. It's like, hey, here's some numbers. Hopefully one of them works for you.
Yeah. Like make them commit to one up front. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they're making $1,000 and you show them like 5%, like you got $50, $70, and $90, like max. Like which one of those is going to be the most comfortable? And then move over to the application. You see what you can get them pre-qualified for, and get specific on what the face value is going to do for them at each tier.
Right. Well, and it's more personalized to them, right? It's not just a random amount based on some number you cooked up. So I love it. Mm-hmm. Last thing I want you to go over is what are some tips you have for, time management and planning for people who are either just individual producers trying to maximize their schedule and make sure they always have leads coming in, or people building a business, how they make sure they have time to, like we talked about at the beginning, like you have to really focus on the things that actually make you money, right? And differentiate what's important and what's not. And it can be hard sometimes because it's like something over here seems really important and it's not. And then sometimes you're like, well, I really have to work on building this relationship that maybe doesn't generate money today, but it will long term. So how do you make sure that you're prioritizing things the right way, and as an agent and as a manager? The other thing I wanted you to incorporate in there is like how you make sure you're always planning so you have enough leads for every single dial day.
Dude, for sure. For sure. I would still base like your schedule around like cash flow, and put the most important things like at the beginning of your day. Right. So just like if we're going to be running like a full weekend of appointments on a Thursday, like, dude, I don't want to start dialing at noon. Like I want to start dialing like heavy and aggressively, like really early in the day, and then get that done as fast as I possibly can so I can recruit and build later on in the day. And then also book some recruiting interviews like in between my field appointments for the next few days. See if you can knock out your whole entire schedule like during your dial day, so you're not stressed and having it affect your performance while you're in the field the next couple of days. Same thing with telesales. Like if I want to make sure that my cash flow is like super good and heavy and maximized all the time, like, dude, early on in the week, I want to make sure that I tackle the majority of my premium so I don't have to be stressed out towards the end of the week. Make sure all your personal bills are paid for, and then like just like pour the fire on. I think it also helps to have a goal in mind too, dude, because like it's really going to be hard to prioritize somebody's schedule if they don't know like the method to the madness and what they want to do. Right. So if you want to build a team and you want to get to like X amount with your team volume, and you're still like going to be running appointments and doing business at a high clip, you have to be pretty damn organized because you have to factor in both facets of the business.
For sure. And you, like, I remember I always had to plan out like what I was gonna do at different sections of my day, even, you know, like I'm gonna dial these this time, work with agents this time, do a staff meeting this time. And I still do that now. Like I was sitting here right before we started this, like, you know, with my calendar, like, okay, this day I'm traveling here, these meetings I do this day, like how do I fit in these ones here? And I think it's important to write out what you have coming up so you don't feel, you know, even if all you have to do is just run business, like just write which days you're gonna be, you know, dialing, which days you're gonna take off, like when you have a date night, just being organized with your schedule can make a massive difference because it kind of declutters your mind, right?
Yes. Yeah. That helps me out a lot, dude. Get as specific as you can.
No doubt, dude. Well, hey, I appreciate it, man. We'll definitely have you back on and go more specific into sales soon, but I appreciate that the focus on just helping everyone increase profitability, you know, and being as effective with their time as possible, dude. And for people who missed or wanted the website you use to keep track of your clients, it's called Honeybook, right?
Yep.
Perfect, man. Well, hey, thanks, Jake. As always, appreciate you. And everyone, if you just watch this and you're like, does Jake know what he's talking about? He's hit Hall of Fame every year he's been here. And really, there should be like a special, like double Hall of Fame, because that's the one that Jake hits every year. So appreciate you, man. Thanks for leading from the front, and we're gonna keep growing this thing.
Thanks, bro.